The New York Stock Exchange was founded in 1792. The Chicago Board of Trade was founded in 1848. Finance is an old and integral part of large American cities, and the masses of professionals who descend upon the downtowns every weekday morning have always been a point of curiosity for the rest of the city. Those of the upper echelon of high finance shape the physical presence of our cities, from the high-rise offices to the luxe neighborhoods and pricey commuter suburbs in their orbit. But even those at the entry level, the young finance bros, I think they're worthy of exploration. Why do they all dress like that? And what do their jobs entail?
I'm really excited to talk about this week.
Yeah, we've been planning this one for a little bit. But no, it kind of fits into earlier ones we talked about with yuppies and even Flaneurs all the way back there.
Yeah, it kind of fits into what I categorize in my mind as the quote-unquote men moving to cities phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But finance bros are much different in that they're not trying to look fashionable like the other three. They're really trying to wear a uniform at the end of the day.
Yeah, whether it's conscious or subconscious.
Yeah. But there are good things that we can say about them. One being that I think that they add to the urban fabric of a city.
Yeah.
Like when I went to Poland this summer, I got to see Warsaw, and I realized that that city had something that the other Polish cities I saw was missing, which was Fortune 500 companies and finance bros, because they add a certain energy. They're moving frantically. They need to get from place to place.
Yeah. As fun as it would be to imagine a city that's just like, I don't know, people making things and stuff like that. Like for a central business district, you need a lot of business to happen there. And you need, bustling people and business cash.
Yeah. No, it's fun to be in a place where everyone's walking fast, like New York City. You get that here. Like urban residents move faster than tourists, but 100%. It's not quite the same.
Yeah. Tourists are always famous for like rubbernecking and looking upwards at stuff and slowing down traffic. I have caught myself getting mad at people doing that, but I've also caught myself just looking up at buildings, even though I've been here for 11 years.
Yeah. I get more so mad about people walking on the wrong side of the sidewalk. Because people who drive, I think they make that mistake sometimes. They don't realize the same rules of the road apply for sidewalks as well.
Oh, sorry, like in a single sidewalk,
yes.
Being on right or left. Yeah, they're saying like for each road you must walk. There's that way. And I was like, that's very formalist of you, Nathan. I thought you were a little more free-flowing than that. But yeah, no. Righty-tighty.
Yeah. And then before we get started, I think we could do some calls to action.
Yeah.
So our audience, please help us in these two key ways. There are other ways that you can help us, but we don't want to overburden you. But the first one is if you could please share an episode that you like with one of your friends that you think would like it. Like think of your favorite episode, one of your favorite recent ones, and then send that to someone that would like it.
Yeah.
And as part of that, actually, I know for myself, when people try to introduce me to podcasts, I often don't check it out the first time. It helps if you repeat it.
Yeah. Like send the link and like actually send it to them. Don't make it feel like homework or anything for your friend. But yeah, like especially if it's connected to something you've recently talked about, Yeah.
And then the second thing is to subscribe to us on Patreon. Each episode that we put out, on my end, it takes like 30 to 40 hours of work per week. And, it's hard to do that week after week. I often have to push myself and make sacrifices. Yeah. And if you incentivize us to keep making episodes, please do that.
If you give us more money, who knows what we're going to do? all types of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. With Finance Bros, we've done other kind of episodes on subcultures. This is hard to say if this is a subculture or not, but it's visually identifiable. So that's always like a good start to identifying something.
Yeah. One phrase that came to me as I was working on research for this week is corporate subculture. I use that in reference to yuppies and how they were kind of a visually identifiable corporate subculture. And I feel like finance bros are a little bit like that.
Yeah. It's interesting to say like a corporate subculture, because you think of other subcultures and they're just so not like ardently not corporate, like hippies and stuff. But this is the idea that like even in your working world, you can be part of a certain set.
You can have a shared system. And with Finance Bros, I'd like to talk about their fashion a lot in this week's episode. I actually made a Pinterest board. Yeah.
It's thank you for doing that. Like it is like people do need the visual stuff like that, but it's like we've put together so many like beautiful Pinterest boards, and this one's more of like a very useful one. It's
very ethnographic because most of the pictures, pretty much all of them, are taken without the knowledge or consent of the finance bros in the pictures.
Yeah,
but that makes them more authentic. But we're lucky to have these at all. Yuppies were very well documented because they were so fashionable.
Yeah.
But like metrosexuals, flaneurs we don't have pictures of them because cameras weren't really invented yet. Yeah. But like metrosexuals, That's much harder. So we're lucky to have as much
Yeah.
photographic evidence as we do.
I guess we have like etchings of dandies, but it's like I think that's kind of similar to this. Like it's pejorative, but it's what we have.
Yeah. But most of the pictures on the Pinterest board, they come from a Instagram account called Midtown Uniform. So finance bro is a term. It first started getting used in 2016. And then in 2017, when Midtown Uniform first started posting pictures, that's when it really took off and it entered everyday lexicon. And so Midtown Uniform, people would submit photographs of finance bros, and they're usually zoomed in, so like from a distance. And they're also taken on much lower quality cameras on their phones because the highest or the most recent iPhone to have come out in 2017 was the iPhone 8. So all of these pictures are pretty low image quality.
Yeah, they're like a light potato quality to them. Definitely. Yeah, it reminds me of back in the Tumblr days. There was this account, Look at This Effing Hipster. And they would just take like photos of people, and it had the same kind of like sardonic bent to it.
Yeah. Did that also have the image captions?
Probably, yeah. Just like, look at this guy. He looks like a he looks like a he's like Union soldier. Like when guys would wear like this suspenders and like a Henley shirt and
Civil
stuff.
War wave.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because the account Midtown Uniform, they all have like image macros that are supposed to be funny, and the humor is very dated. It feels very 2017. Like there's
not new posts on this, right? It's kind of like it's frozen in time.
Yeah, the most recent post was from 2024. I don't know exactly when. Yeah, it's something.
I always wonder what it's like to maintain an account like that. It's just like, it doesn't feel like a labor of love, I don't think. Do you tell people at work that like, I am the one who runs Midtown Uniform, actually?
I think it's always best to keep creative projects dormant and then to occasionally update them just in case. Like that's sort of what happened with PC Music, where they more or less officially shut down, but then the record label said that they would issue special releases sort of hinting at remixes. But
interesting.
But yeah, all of the image macros, like one of them, it says like, I put the fun in hedge fund. They're really bad puns.
Yeah. It's like the churn of content is it's hard to keep it fresh and original.
Yeah.
Like, especially like, what is this person's talent? Is it captions, or is it taking the photos, or is it just having the free time to maintain the account, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure that whoever ran the account was getting user submissions based off of how many there are.
Yeah. But
unfortunately, they put like water text of at Midtown Uniform over every picture. So they're all the ones in the Pinterest board are further rendered like poor images by me having to crop them in.
I'm a big fan of intellectual property and all that stuff, and protecting your work. But like, this is not great works of art. Like, leave the watermark off it.
Yeah. So to talk about finance pro fashion, I think we can talk about the quintessential finance bro look from head to toe, starting with their head, which is that they wear nothing.
No. Yeah,
so,
no hat.
You know, men by the 2010s, they don't wear hats really. Like ever since the 50s and the rise of Ivy style, that stopped being a thing.
Yeah, no. It'd be kind of crazy if they did just up and wear hats. Like, it'd be way too much. But as we'll kind of touch on throughout this, is it is just kind of, it's a non look. It's supposed to kind of fade into the background and not stand out too much.
Yeah. There's an alternate universe where men on Wall Street wear fedoras every day.
Yes. It'd be funny if, like, I don't know, like the fedora question. Like, I know I'm just never going to do it until I'm like 80. Then I'm going to pull it out and be like, all right, I'm wearing fedoras now or something. But like, especially if there's no like suit jacket or anything, it just becomes very jarring to just have hat there out of nowhere.
Yeah. But it's interesting to note that they're not wearing hats because with the rise of Ivy style, it was the younger men who stopped wearing them, and then older men continued to for a couple of decades. So I found an article published in WWD titled Then and Now, Wall Street Power Dressing, where it compared photographs of men on Wall Street from 1975 and 2019. And you could see at least 3 or 4 images of the men in 1975 wearing hats.
Yeah, that was a really interesting year to choose because that's kind of after the heyday of like Ivy and trad style. It's kind of during the Peacock Revolution. So you had bell bottoms a little bit and that. But you also just had older guys who were still wearing 3-piece suits. You also had some older guys who were like really taking it to the new style too. Maybe to still seem like hip and young. I don't know. Maybe they're divorced or something. I don't know. That's my theory. There was an increase in divorce in the 70s. Yeah. With the like kind of invention of no fault divorce. But yeah, so it's like such an interesting part to combine that too. It wasn't just, they could have just done the very basic thing, which would have been like yuppies versus finance bros. But 75 is, I don't know, it's a good choice.
Yeah. And there's more variety in their outfits than you'd kind of expect.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just big, like, yeah, differences in like overall formality. I will say the photos are taken in fall, so there's just gonna be more variety in the overcoats and like, you know, the jackets people chose to wear. And all the
Yeah.
photos from 2019 are in like, seems like kind of a shoulder season or so, you know, like not in the dog days of summer, but either in like, you know, early spring, late fall, or no, early fall or something.
I have one theory for why there might have been more variety in men's clothing on Wall Street in the 70s compared to 2019. And that is because Wall Street as an institution hadn't risen to the same level of prominence by the 70s. People forget this, but after the Great Depression, it took several decades for Wall Street to, and just the stock exchange, finance in general, really, to rise to the same level of importance. Like there was a period of time, I believe I read this in the book Goliath by Matt Stoller, that like between, I think, the 20s and the 60s, the workforce at Wall Street, it only grew 4%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Wow. It really puts a number on it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
But by 2019 came around, you needed to have a really polished pedigree. You needed to prove that you wanted to work there long before you ever were of working age, basically, by having the right credentials. And that is reflected in everyone more or less having uniform.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this throughout this, but like, you know, we're kind of bouncing between talking about like finance workers specifically and also just kind of like white collar culture more broadly.
Yeah.
And in my mind's eye, like we had a more diversified white collar workforce in the past, or when it feels like now there's just more and more finance and tech and fintech. I don't know. This could just be me like kind of waxing poetic for a day where like when, in the 60s, a businessman in Manhattan was going to work at like a factory that made appliances or power tools.
Yeah.
Not a factory, sorry, a company. He was a, you know, paper pusher at a company that produced like physical things, you know, maybe in some far off factory or something, but it was a more diversified white collar workforce where now everyone works in one of two fields and consulting, I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of bleak.
Yeah. I was through this app, I was going to these like dinners with strangers things, this app called 222. And it was just like, I was like, God, I would just love to meet a lawyer. Honestly, at this point, like just everyone is in finance. Like I feel like my preparation for like entering the kind of like young professional world would be like, oh, I'm in medicine, I'm in law, I'm in this. And it's like, no, everyone's in finance.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be shocked how many dates I go on, or guys I start messaging on dating apps where they say something along the lines of like, wow, I never met a librarian before.
Yeah, that's funny. I actually, it is half finance, but also like software engineers. That was everyone else I met too. So some credit to them as well. Yeah. To the Swedes out there.
And on, you know, that tech bros, finance bros, one place that they do kind of overlap is the next piece of the finance bro wardrobe, which is the fleece/puffer vest. This is the most important part of the look. Yeah,
the fleece vest is where it all comes together, specifically with the company logo embroidered on it.
Yeah. But why exactly is it so popular? I kind of theorized, my hypothesis before I started doing research was that this was the tech industry and their fashion standards seeping into the financial world. But in reality, vests became popular in both around the same time.
I think that is due to the interplay between them, though. I don't know. I think it's that bit of like gorpiness that comes from the West Coast. Maybe it needed like New York to really germinate in it or something. But I think the seed has got to come from out West.
That's what I kind of thought, because really all techwear trends seem to come out of the Pacific Northwest, as with health goth, as with gorpcore. But that's not what I found with research. According to this one article, the Patagonia vest endures in San Francisco tech circles. A researcher was interviewed and they said it can be traced back to the 2000s in the dot-com bubble, and it became popular then because you can wear your pressed khakis and your collared shirt and you can put on a fleece vest, and it just hits the right sweet spot between East Coast money and West Coast casual.
Yeah, no, it's the interplay between like, the fleece and the Oxford. Because you just wear just the fleece, then it's like, it's nothing. You know, it's like you need the business angle of it.
And then of fleece and puffer vests, the most important brand is Patagonia.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why they started to wear a Patagonia vest, it has more to do with them being as a status symbol than anything aesthetic. It was really just because finance firms knew their employees would know that they cost money, and so they started to gift them to employees along with embroidered logos on them.
But then it kind of got on the wrong side of Patagonia itself.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the CEO of the company?
Yeah, we talked about him briefly on the Gorpcore episode. He's like this French or French-Canadian guy. And I like that one of the titles he has is blacksmith because he was making little like metal pitons or whatever, which are the things you use in climbing. And then he started selling clothes and then suddenly he's a billionaire. But he seems like of all the unlikely billionaires, he's like pretty damn unlikely.
Yeah. No, I think he is French. I have no idea how to say his name. It's like Yvon Chouinard.
Yeah.
But he's very altruistic. His idea with Patagonia was because he at some point did want to make money, but he became a billionaire and he didn't actually want to be to some extent. So money stopped being as much of a problem. So after 2019, Patagonia changed their policy and they started to only make embroidered vests for what are called B corporations, the ones that have like more altruistic causes or help community or in the environment.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of like a corporation, like one big corporation saying to other big corporations, like, no, meet me where I am. They're kind of saying like, all these corporations have like a list of like values and stuff like that. But I don't know, Patagonia, I do got to hand them that. Sometimes I feel like they beat you over the head with how like altruistic they are. Like I've bought some of their like tinned fish before, and there's like a whole like paragraph on the back of it of how ethical their fish is, and I'm like, how does it taste? Is it good?
Yeah. But it didn't matter too much. Like I don't think finance bros and financial firms cared too much about them being blocked from being able to get their officially embroidered vest from Patagonia because it was sort of less cool by that point anyway. They started to wear like Arc'teryx and Peter Miller in the following years anyways.
Yeah. At my company, we got some Peter Millar stuff, and it's very like, it doesn't look as good as the Patagonia stuff. It's very thin. I think it's like a performance fabric. It can be thin and all that, but I don't know. It's very polyestery. Not that fleece already isn't inherently made of polyester, but yeah, I guess it's the new hot thing now.
Yeah, their stuff is so expensive. Their vests are a couple of $100s each, and there's some that go over $1,000.
Yeah, you posted the suede leather one. It doesn't look that good, but hey, it is $1,300.
Yeah. So now financial firms, when they give their employees swag that has their financial firm's logo on it, their main option is banker bags.
Oh yeah, I love a good banker's bag. So yeah, it's like a cylindrical duffel, just kind of made out of like cotton or something, and then you have like on it like the kind of like the straps that hold it together basically have the company's logo on it. I think that they started in the 90s as something you'd give to interns, basically, late 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I hear banker bag, I think of the drawstring ones, but that's not what it is, right?
No. That's the sad thing is that it feels like the banker bags are on their way out and they're just being replaced by the backpack, basically. Like a very like Spartan black backpack that just on the back of it, on the center, is the name of your firm, basically. I notice these a lot when I'm like in what I would call bike traffic, which is like I'm behind a finance bro who's on a Divvy rentable bike, and I'm not on my phone, so I just have to read the back of his backpack, and I'm like, oh, that's another hedge fund I know about now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that they want to advertise this so much in public. It will tie into something we're going to talk about with like uniforms in a bit.
Yeah. I think that also the rise of I think the banker bag is something for like recreation. Like you can have a change of clothes in it. You can go on a weekend trip or something. But the backpack is just to carry your laptop. I think that's driven from like work from home stuff, is that you're now expected to like ferry your laptop back and forth. And that's very different from like, I think office life previously, where I think like businessmen had comically little to bring to the office, essentially. Like every man had a briefcase, but like all they had in it was like a few scraps of paper and like a sandwich. I don't know. I don't know. The backpack is functional. It makes sense, but it's sad to see it gain so much power.
Yeah. No, it's hard to like travel light when you're going to work. I've never really been able to go downtown with just my pockets, really.
No, I always just wonder about like, did people in like 70s and 80s, did they drink water, like at all? Because it feels like everyone nowadays knows to always keep like a water bottle with you, probably insulated or something. But I think in the past that was just people just were dehydrated all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they relied on water fountains a lot more.
Yeah, maybe
I
that.
can see that being a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the vests that they wear, they're typically sleeveless, but not always. Like you'll also see fleece and puffer jackets with sleeves still, many of which there are plenty of examples in our Pinterest board.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a climate driven thing. Like the fleece over the dress shirt is just good for being in a conditioned office, you know, and then just like a quick outing for lunch. And then getting back, like it's a very like conditioned kind of thing. And then as it gets colder, you can add sleeves to the vest. Not add, you can wear your sleeved one.
Do you like quarter zips?
They're just okay. I don't know. I had a nice one from summer camp, but I don't know. Quarter buttons are a lot rare, but I think those look very good. Yeah, and then so going down the outfit, dress shirt and slacks.
Yeah. This is something that I thought wasn't very different today compared to previous decades in the financial industry. I assume that the dress shirts and slacks that they wore are more or less the same, but that's not the case, right?
No, things have changed in like, I think, subtle but pretty key ways. I mean, we've just talked about that, like, yeah, the jacket's on its way out, you know, like actually having a suit jacket is for those who are client facing nowadays, and ties are for those who are client facing and seeing like other important people. But for average people going into the office, the one day or 3 days a week they go into the office, it's now pretty much down to just a dress shirt and slacks. Yeah, in the past, dress shirts would be like broadcloth, which is a very like flat and smooth and formal fabric. Or if you want to be a little more casual, you'd wear an Oxford, which is like rough and nubby. But now they are like, yes, still cotton, but also like poly and spandex as a stretch material, performance material. And so, yeah, and they're cut a lot tighter nowadays. So.
Yeah. Hearing that, it makes me think of the four lads in jeans meme.
Yes. This is like on the spectrum of like 1980s super generously cut stuff. Like the opposite side of that is the four lads in jeans who are like suctioned or like sausaged into their pants, essentially. I see some guys who are like almost on that kind of level. Yeah. And then, yeah, pants would have been like, in the past, they would have been like wool as a little more formal and in warmer months, and then like cotton chinos, which are more casual. And then khaki is always more casual than like a dark navy or olive or something. But just the modern finance bro look has become so standardized. It's not just that it's a dress shirt and slacks, it's that it's a light blue dress shirt and dark navy slacks. Like I see that, like I wish I could do a study on it, like where I just like set up with a camera and try and catch as many of those as I can. I think that it's a very logical kind of thing to end up at, because a white shirt can feel too formal sometimes, so might as well wear a blue one. It's a little more cash. And then with pants, khaki can seem too casual and easy to stain at the same time. And then so people drift more towards the dark navy. So, you know, even if you go to Chipotle, as many a finance bro does, a Chipotle boy, you know, you can safely get the red salsa and not fear of it staining your khakis for your business meeting next. But, yeah.
That's interesting, because you're hypothesizing the handful of things about their day that aren't just like looking at a screen and thinking about how their uniform is more or less based around material constraints or the physical world. Yeah,
there's so few enacted on them, you know, like it's, as I said, like weather is not a huge issue. You're in a conditioned environment and stuff. Like you just, the name of the game that you're navigating every day is just like, how do I feel formal enough, casual enough, comfortable enough? And just like they've arrived at a very similar solution.
Yeah. And then one thing about these dress shirts and slacks being made out of polyester, I feel like it might be a way to compensate for them no longer being tailored. Instead of them needing to be tailored, they can just stretch more.
Yeah, they just fit to you, basically. Yeah, I think that's totally true. Yeah, we've also just changed the idea of what like fit means. Like it used to mean like, oh yeah, you get them tailored to fit you. But now it feels like we've tailored so that you fit perfectly into them, like hand in glove, basically.
Yeah. And then the next element of their look, dress shoes. So this is just like kids in school, where you don't have much control over the garments that you wear, but then you get to actually express some individuality with accessories, namely shoes and then also watches. Yeah. And my friend who works in corporate America, I asked them for some advice on this. And they typically, like the highest they'll go, the shoes will be Ferragamo or Gucci. But the lower end, it'll just be sneakers or gym shoes like Allbirds.
Yeah, it's the way you get to express yourself. The watches is totally true too. Yeah, with
Yeah.
like the pants and the slacks figured out and all that, like then that's your blow off valve for self-expression.
But a lot of finance bros, they'll try not to be flashier than their boss, and
Yes.
each firm will also have a different corporate culture around how ostentatious you can be.
Yeah. You brought up a great thing. I'd heard this once before, but the deal sleds. So this is specifically like fancy loafers,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, this is one shoe style that's particularly popular right now. I think they're kind of ugly though.
Yeah, so horsebit loafers are any loafers that have the little like metal fastener on it. And so Gucci had a very famous one, and this is, I think, the archetypical deal sled of nowadays. I guess they're saying that like it's the one that you really bring in the deal with, like you brought out the big guns. But I found an article listing great deal sleds for this season and stuff. And they mentioned the Gucci one it can feel very put on if you are a junior member. So here's a subtler deal sled for you if you're a more junior executive or something. So yeah, there's a deal sled for every man in every season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think a very Finbro thing is light brown dress shoes. A lot of like things go, in cycles in menswear. But one thing that had never really changed was how light your shoes could get.
Yeah.
No one was really pushing the boundaries with that until around, I would say, the mid 2000s and the late 2000s, when the light brown kind of emerged as this like new hip thing to do. Before, it would have been black or very dark brown, like chestnut brown. I am not a big fan of this. I think they look like cockroaches. I think they're just the color of that, their shape, and all of that. Yeah.
Brown is my favorite color, but this is not a nice shade of brown. It isn't really pretty.
I owned a pair of these, I gotta say. When I just like got my first internship at 2014, like I just walked it, or later than that, like 2017, like walked into a Aldo or something and got light brown dress shoes. And then, I don't know, we're all young at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's important to note that within the finance world, there is a subtype of employee that has even lower standards of dress than everyone else. Those are the quants. Quant is short for quantitative analyst. It isn't short for quantum, like I kind of thought.
That would have been cool.
But I know a bit about them because of our friend Pablo, who lives in Spain. I was with him in Poland and Prague this summer. And he describes quants as being quote unquote autistic.
He's not alone in that. Yeah. That seems to be the general take on them, is that they're, the like autistic nerds who are like kept in the back or in the basement, do the number crunching. And then they pass off this information to the more like people facing finance guys who present this and, make decisions based on it and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. What he does, I'm not actually too sure, but I got to see what he does, what he wears to work. I asked him for some pictures, and he wears Uniqlo a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Uniqlo is like how a lot of young guys are fitted out for like entering the office in their 20s. And there's good stuff there. There's decent amounts of variety, I would say. Not too much. If you work in a big enough firm, you're definitely going to walk past someone who's wearing the same Uniqlo shirt as you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I don't know, Uniqlo might be a little bit, I mean, Pablo, what he showed me, actual dress shirts, dress pants with a belt, shoes. But I read online that sometimes they just wear polos to the office, which really is as casual as it gets.
I swear I've seen more of those this summer than last. Can't put a number on it. Wish I could. But yeah, just like walking around downtown Chicago. I don't know. Maybe it's people coming. It's, the classic thing. People are going back to the office and they're taking some of the habits they picked up, like working at home. But yeah, definitely the tucked in polo. Not tucked in would be kind of crazy in the office, I feel. Yeah.
I feel like if casualization trends continue, we're maybe going to get to the point where men in finance and white collar workers in general, they don't wear anything besides a dress shirt to work. Because if you think of the vest, the Patagonia vest, as being an intermediary between a suit jacket and nothing, like I think that may be where we're headed.
I think, we're in some places we're totally there, and maybe like just in the depths of summer, you'll see like no vests on people and stuff. But I think the vest kind of hangs around because there is something kind of naked about the solo dress shirt. Yeah. I think especially when it's just a white dress shirt, you just feel very kind of like bright and exposed.
And if you get rained on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just, because like dress shirts are historically they're closer to undergarments than anything else than they are to like jackets. So but they've taken on this new life and now they have to serve as like the outermost part of an outfit. And that's where I think that like the tightness of them comes in from now, where they used to be cut baggier because they'd always be covered in something tailored.
Yeah.
Now they must take on the onus of being the final tailored garment.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like part of the reason why finance pros started to wear vests is because they were able to, because commutes started to be more and more climate controlled.
Oh, yeah.
Like so much of menswear and what people wore 100 years ago, it looked so layered, so intricate, so interesting because they spent most of their time outside or in buildings that were not as well climate controlled. And so they dressed warmer. And so that's why their outfits were
100%.
Like, more complex.
Yeah. I think, offices back then before like good, like weather stripping and air conditioning and stuff was like just a little bit more hospitable than being outside, basically. I don't know. I do always have to understand, like, why aren't people in 3-piece suits anymore? It's like, do you want to be in a 3-piece suit in a modern office? No, you probably don't. It's like 72 degrees on the dot.
Yeah. If things were a bit chillier, though, it would be so nice.
Yeah, no. Well, that's sometimes a little inter-office gender war sometimes, is that women are always cold in the office because it's kept cold enough for men who are, fully legs covered, arms covered in a dress shirt. And then women are often in like, a dress or a skirt or something. So yeah, there can often be a war over the thermostat.
Interesting.
But, yeah.
And then to talk about uniforms in relation to finance pros, I've kept on alluding to this. I feel like finance pros are some of the only white collar workers who try to actively signal their profession to the rest of the world. And it kind of gets at the root of what a uniform is supposed to be. So in preparation for the Bohemianism episode, I listened to a BBC In Our Time episode.
My God, I love In Our Time. It's so good.
It's been going on forever, I guess, because the episode I listened to was from 2004.
Yeah, no, they like back uploaded them onto podcasts once that became a thing. It is a radio program of an old form.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in their Bohemianism episode, they had a few professors and academics on, and one of them was talking about how in 19th century France, if you walked down the street, you'd be able to tell what every man did based off what they were wearing, because bakers looked like bakers, butchers looked like butchers, and the disheveled look of bohemians that was specifically associated with writers. But that was an idea that was kind of in my head. And then I went to the Art Institute to see the Gustave Caillebotte exhibition. Do you know that painter?
Yeah, I know. I just know his one like most famous painting of the Art Institute, where it's a couple walking down a rainy street
with no cars.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I always think about that image. I think of that image in my head when I try to think about a world that's car free, and how I can just so easily imagine that painting and how stress free it is.
Yeah, but it's a good mix. It's not just like agrarian car free. It's city car free. It's that like. Not brief period, I guess increasingly brief as our time, as the car era continues, but that period of tall buildings and no cars, like to a lot of people, those go hand in hand, basically. Like, how do you fill the building if there's no cars to bring the people there? Yeah, but that's a very American look.
Yeah, it's a great painting. And another one of his paintings that's on the exhibit was The House Painters, which is a painting of two painters painting a storefront, and they're wearing smocks. And seeing that with that idea from In Our Time in my head, it just really clicked for me. I realized that most uniforms, pretty much all of them historically, have been designed for manual labor, and the purpose of uniforms is largely to do manual work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, the idea of a non-manual work uniform is very interesting. I guess service workers fit into that as well, too.
Yeah. I feel like the modern sort of purpose of a uniform is to signal corporate affiliation. That's what you see with McDonald's workers and fast food workers.
Yeah. I remember in the fast food episode we talked about that one Burger King uniform that looked almost militaristic, like showing that you were serving for Burger King in a sense.
Yeah, it's like all the colors of a hamburger, but in stripes on their shirts. Yeah. But I feel like finance pros, they're kind of wearing uniforms in the more modern sense, where it's about just signaling that you have an employer. Yeah, but I don't get why they're trying so hard to show the entire world that they work at a particular place, other than the place they work is prestigious.
I mean, I kind of get it. Like, say what you will about finance bros, but they do tend to pull very long hours. Like, I'll be surprised, like, on some times where I'm walking to the grocery store and I see someone, like, leaving the train station at, like, 8 o'clock, meaning that like they probably got off work around 7:30, 7:45 or something like that. And I don't know, like if you're gonna put in all that work and go to that good school and like all that stuff, you might as well flaunt it and let people know that you're making big money.
Yeah. But I feel like you'd see more people doing that in other like PMC white collar jobs if I don't know. They're really the only ones doing it.
Yeah, it's the finance shade of the PMC. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing, and I'm a little venturing off here. I wish I had a little more hard data for it, but I think that like the finance bro type of guy also kind of remains very uniformed in his leisure time as well too. I think it's almost more codified on the weekend than it is during the week. Because at least we'll get, not everyone is wearing a blue dress shirt, I will admit. There's also gingham. There's also checker and stuff like that. Stripes, university stripes, broad stripes and stuff. But I think that just the kind of guys I see in the, kind of in the neighborhood I live in and in the very like, in the nicer neighborhoods of Chicago and stuff that have like restaurants that people want to go to is you see this kind of arrived upon look of weekend kickback where it's like a white or beige, like just t-shirt, dress shirts are for the week. So that means that we have t-shirts on the weekends. Gym shorts, just like dark gray or black, like probably from a direct consumer brand.
Yeah.
Allbirds makes exercise shorts too. You can get the full kit. And then shoe wise, it is the aforementioned Allbirds, On Clouds, Hokas, that kind of stuff, often of a light color. And then for socks, this is always a great shibboleth to separate people is, ankle socks if you're a millennial, and then taller like tube socks if you're Gen Z.
Calf socks,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that. So yeah, do you also see them wearing the green Adidas shoes?
Green Adidas shoes.
The ones I'm talking about.
Sambas? Are they black?
It's a look I associate with Gen Z, but they're usually white and then they have like
green. Stan Smiths. Yes.
Stan Smiths, okay.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah. No, a lot of that too. Yeah, and that's I don't know. I can't be grumpy and old school all the time, but I just feel like, I don't know, this makes me nostalgic for an earlier period of bro that we've talked about, which is the more like the chubbies, untucked Oxford shirt type of relaxed weekend fit versus just, does everything have to be breathable? You're just going to the bar. Like you're just gonna you're not working up that much of a sweat.
Yeah.
But yeah. And this type of fit is just, I don't know, this doesn't have a name. I guess you could call it it feels wrong to call them finance bros on the weekend or just call them normies. That's just bland and uninteresting. But I've thought about beige DTC man, like beige direct to consumer man, that he's fully kitted out and stuff that you can buy purely through podcast advertisements, not that we have true classic advertisements or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Requires further study is what they say to a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I associate this look with DePaul and DePaul students more so than adult men who work in finance. But maybe it's just because younger guys have more free time and those are the ones I'm seeing more often.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, as they get older, they get shipped out to the suburbs or something.
Yeah. And then something interesting is that finance bro fashion in the 2020s, it started to actually seep a bit into politics. Mm-hmm. And a really good example of this is Glenn Youngkin. Are you familiar with him?
I had definitely seen him before. Once you sent me the photos and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that guy.
Yeah. He's the current governor of Virginia. And he won in 2021 during an off-year election. Virginia, they have their gubernatorial elections 1 year after every presidential election. So they're often bellwethers. People use them to predict how political tides are shifting.
Yeah.
And so he's a Republican and he won in a blue state in 2021. People took this as a big sign that things were going to shift and Democrats would have a wipeout in the midterms. That didn't happen. But he won because he ran during this very particular time where the Overton window was about school lockdowns and COVID, and he was a Republican governor saying he wouldn't shut down the schools again.
Yeah.
So people voted for him for that reason. And they didn't factor in how much of a finance bro, venture capitalist, I don't know any other pejorative terms I can use for rich people. But yeah, people didn't factor that in as much. The fact that he worked for the Carlyle Group and was the CEO of it.
Whoa. Yeah, he seems like a little bit of a throwback. I do know that like in gubernatorial stuff, people choose a little bit more sensible of
Yeah.
candidates, you know? Like House of Representatives, like you get all types. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where Margie Taylor Greene is kept, you know, like that type of stuff. And so you get a little more vetting when it comes to gubernatorial stuff. But yeah, he seems like a kind of old school, like Reaganite Republican.
Yeah, more
Um,
moderate.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yet, like going less, I guess these kind of are culture war issues. Like school lockdowns did become culture war issues. But yeah, he just seemed like an interesting, like he was of his time, I would say. He was when people were just like, we want back to normalcy.
Yeah.
He looks like normalcy. He does.
And what's interesting too is him being very of the moment. I feel like the trend of politicians wearing fleece vest or puffer vest, it really started and kind of ended with him in a way. Like some people copied him around the same time, but coming from the finance world, he reflexively wore like not Patagonia vests. They would usually have his campaign logo on them, but he'd wear a vest pretty much on every campaign stop. And then by the time he became governor, he just started wearing a suit like every other politician.
Wow. That's funny that John Fetterman didn't give up his look when he got into office, but this guy gave up his like much less crazy look. It's just it's you know the gap between finance bro and like standard dark navy suit politician is a lot closer than whatever the hell John Fetterman's doing and what he's expected to wear.
Yeah. JB Pritzker actually has some pictures of him wearing finance vest too, or finance bro vest too. But I wasn't able to read this think piece on it because it was paywalled.
Yeah, but it's on the power vest, which I do think is a good term for it. They're stealing that from the 80s. The power suit was this idea of the broad-shouldered like executive suit. I
didn't put two and two together. I can see that though, but the power vest doesn't have like padded shoulders in the same way.
No, I think it is kind of slimming though. Which I think we all know that JB Pritzker is concerned with that. That's what everyone's been saying recently. He's been slimming down, like he's getting ready for the presidential run. He knows he has to like slim down for the mass market. Like in Chicago, that's fine. But like,
yeah,
if you want to be the president.
These aren't my words, but I have a very conservative relative in the exurbs who said something once on Facebook where she just called him a fat Democrat.
That's so she's like reaching for something like he's a Democrat and he's fat. Like
yeah.
I think that shows that he is such like a safe and bankable candidate. Like, you know, she'd like to call him a communist, but you clearly can't call him that, you know, or a radical. You can't call him that either. So it's just he's fat. Like, look at him.
Yeah. But I'm not sure why he was wearing the vest. Again, we didn't get to read it. But if you want us to be able to afford paywalled articles, please support us on Patreon.
This is true. That your money goes straight into that WAPO payment. Yeah.
And then Glenn Youngkin's look, it kind of fits into something called the alpha dad look. Did you know about this before this week?
I knew the one TikTok. I knew the alpha dads at the Suns game.
There's a TikTok account called American High Shorts, and that they made that TikTok video. But they're kind of dressed more or less just like finance bros. The way that they're conveying that they're quote unquote alpha dads is really in their body language and posture. They're incredibly rigid, like a boomer who can't touch their toes.
Yes. Yeah, they're just very like lockstep. And of course they play it up in the video and stuff, but it's how they carry themselves, but it's also how they conduct with others. It's the back slapping, which I think is very good because it's like it's the perfect mix of it's not a hug because that's gay. And so like it's a quick swift pat on there. Like we're familiar, but not too much.
It's not butt slapping.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I want to show that we're close, but not for too long. Like just a very swift kind of that thing. And also there's something about like the framing of it being at the kids' sports game is that like he came there straight from work, you know, because he is a busy, industrious dad.
Yeah. This look, I kind of associate it with the East Coast.
Yes.
And I think you see it a lot in the tri-state area, you know, like Connecticut, New Jersey, Long Island.
Yeah. This is, Connecticut dad. Like 100%. Yeah. I was just blown away when we did the Megalopolis thing and learning that like all the commuter suburbs, all the commuter states into New York are all pretty mixed in their, you know, like class strata and all that, except for Connecticut, which is just like big bucks.
Yeah, a lot of money. But you can also be from the DC metro area and work for the Carlyle Group and be an alpha dad, as is the case with Glenn Youngkin.
He's all three.
I feel like the emergence, though, of the term alpha dad, it's sort of the result of people wanting to still talk about finance bros, but not being able to because bro is just feels so outdated at this point.
Yeah, it had a good run. If you think about it, starting in like the early and mid 2000s, like things can't hang on for that long. People are getting sick of the term hippie, like pretty well
Yeah.
into the 70s or so. And yeah, bro just became this ever shifting thing. And I think maybe like Bernie bro being a useless term also happened. I think people forget DIY bro, that
Yeah.
term. Yeah, of like a guy who'd hang out at DIY events and wear like black dickies. He's seen as a precursor to the performative male, I would say, but he's forgotten to time now. He's a very 2016 figure.
Yeah. No, I don't think of bro as being a subculture suffix like core or punk, or
yeah,
but it kind of was.
Yeah, because there was modifiers. There was stoner bro. I kind of forgot about that one. I was reading about too. And it's like, what's broy about sitting around and smoking weed? But it became too expansive and it crushed under that weight, which is kind of a shame because I feel like finance bro is like a pretty apt kind of thing. But yeah. But now we have guy in finance.
Yeah, just finance guy. I feel like when I see TikTok videos about finance, it'll just be finance in general now, or just finance guy.
Yeah, and it's less like age locked, Yeah.
In
those photos of 2019 Wall Street guys, I was kind of struck by if in the 70s there was kind of a great diversity between like old men wear this, young men wear this. There was kind of everything reaching towards the mean with this, that you would see just like, balding men in their 50s dressed the same as like the junior executives, of course, with small changes in watch quality and expensiveness and deal sled expensiveness. But yeah.
And then I want to talk about Jim Cramer a little bit.
Fascinating figure.
He's kind of an alpha dad, but not in the like East Coast hot way.
No, just the loud way. Yeah. Kind of a strange cultural constant. It feels like he's been on as long as like Dr. Phil. I don't know. To me, it's very strange if there's someone on daytime TV who's been around since I was like a kid being sick home from school, and now if I'm an adult, like sick or in a waiting room at a hospital or something, like I see the same person, but now they're in HD as opposed to a little like 4x3 CRT. He's got staying power.
He does, even though he's not that great at his job. Yeah. I don't know how tapped in you were to what was going on with like meme stocks and like Wall Street bets and all that stuff.
Roommate was very into it. I was kept abreast of it out of concern for his financial safety. Yeah.
But that whole community, they have what's called the inverse Cramer.
Yes, I heard about this. Yeah. You do the opposite of what he says, basically.
Yeah. So whenever he says buy a stock, then on Wall Street Bets or other subreddits, like people will just say to do the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually made an ETF that was called the inverse Cramer ETF, which actually failed. So maybe there isn't as much to the inverse Cramer as people are saying.
He is not worse than a coin flip, is what they're saying. Which is quite the accolade. But
yeah. He's made some big mistakes, though. Like he told people to invest in Silicon Valley Bank as well as First Republic Bank in the like weeks before both banks collapsed in 2023.
Wow.
So yeah, some egregious mistakes here and there.
That's so interesting because like Nate Silver, like he made one bad call and he was kind of pushed out of, he's still around there. He's got a blog. No one can take that from him and stuff. But he was kind of, pushed aside. But yeah, Jim Cramer could just get everything wrong and still have just like a spot in every American's living room.
Yeah. It's hard to find guys that can yell that well.
Yeah. No, it is very electrifying. Like CNBC kind of stresses me out, but I also feel very like competent when I watch it. I like the little like ticker at the bottom and I'm like, yeah. I get the same feeling when I read Crane's Chicago Business, that magazine, before my 5 articles are up. Again, the Patreon guys. But yeah, I also feel like, I'm tapped into the business world. Like I'm abreast of the issues.
Yeah. For people who don't know, that's like a local, or is it only local? It's local to Chicago.
Yeah, I think it started here and maybe they have other places and stuff. But yeah, they have good stuff. It's very like deep dives.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was syndicated, but yeah, Crane Chicago Business is like very local to here.
Mm-hmm. They're ahead of the curve on stuff. Yeah.
And then I want to talk about bull slop discourse.
Yes. Yuppies showed their taste through like, like fancy restaurants and all that kind of stuff. But bull slop is seen as a part of the finance bro kind of ethos.
Which is interesting. Okay, so bull slop, it's all of the fast casual chains where you can get stuff thrown in a bowl, like Chipotle, Sweet Green Cava. And it's interesting that finance bros, they tend to go to the same restaurants over and over again because if you think about what their daily lives are like, very boring. They don't have a lot going on that's Instagrammable.
Yeah.
Like if you ask them, the highlight of their day, it is usually lunch. So it's like why do you keep going to the same place over and over?
No, yeah, it's interesting. It's given all these options and stuff, and you feel like, especially in downtown parts of cities, you have all these different fast casual places like elbowing in front of each other to try and like get that lunch rush money. People just choose the same ones.
Yeah. There are a lot of pictures on our Pinterest board of finance bros, like groups of 3 or 4, either holding bags, exiting a fast casual chain, or just like actually eating them. There are a few pictures of them grazing.
Grazing, yeah. Yeah, that adds to the wildlife photography kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that they're more visible and seen because we've kind of lost the cafeteria. And that can mean two things. So like cafeteria style restaurants were common in like small towns and in cities. Is just a place to get, a variety of hot food served quickly and economically. And those were mostly killed off by fast food. Basically, people like drive-throughs, people like the offerings of fast food. They liked that it was made to order as opposed to sitting out there in a heating vessel and stuff. But the other side of that was corporate cafeterias, which have been around since like the Industrial Revolution. Hallmark cards had a great one in the 1920s that kind of upped the game for them. And they're one of those things that actually survived the jump through World War II. Like not a lot of things, in American life survived that jump, but high-rise office buildings that were being built would have a big cafeteria shared amongst their workers. Like a famous one was like Condé Nast, the magazine publisher. Like in that cafeteria, you'd have like creatives and artists. Anna Wintour would be there. Yeah,
that's interesting because a question that came to mind as I was thinking about bull slop, I was questioning whether or not lunch has changed along with fashion on Wall Street. Because there have been so many memes, or not memes, but like reels, TikTok videos about the like 1990s soup and sandwich craze and like Zoop. Yeah. Yeah. So in the 90s, I think getting a soup and sandwich was a thing. In the 2010s and 2020s, it's bowl slop, but then it was the cafeteria for a previous generation, right?
Earlier. Yeah. The company cafeteria bought itself sometime in the tech boom, like with more suburban type of like office centers and stuff. Like
that makes sense.
They were too far from like quick lunch spots, so they started to do cafeterias. But then when they were so flush with tech money, the cafeterias became increasingly luxe. I don't know if you remember, like people would always talk about how like crazy the perks are at Google campus.
I do remember that.
The pods that you could sleep in, and the laundry they had, and the like luxurious food offerings and all that. Yeah. But then the nail in the coffin for that was work from home, because a cafeteria is a very like expensive set cost. And if you don't know how many people are coming into the office with a work schedule, then it's hard to staff that.
That always sounded so appealing to me as like a college student where like free food was a big deal. And I like the thought of my employer giving me free lunch every day was like, wow.
I was kind of promised that by my mom because she worked in Chicago in the late 80s, early 90s. And she had to learn to cook when she had us because she was fed 3 square meals a day, basically at her like big anonymous office building and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I arrive into the city and I have to scavenge every lunch or pack some, sad little boy lunch.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that you have like work dinners. For me at the library, I get free lunch from my employer once a year during all staff development. And last year I actually got free lunch another time, but this is really sad. It's because 3 people got assaulted at my branch. And so they gave us pizza one time.
That's so grim. Like, I mean, I understand it. Like, we do kind of demand austerity from our city workers. Especially in Chicago, everyone has a sneaking suspicion that they're living too well, the city workers,
Yeah.
So we need to see them suffer a little bit. But, like, come on. They should get a monthly lunch. At least.
Yeah. Okay, so back to bowl slop. I think it's fitting that these people who love fast casual so much, it kind of explains their fashion style, because their fashion style is kind of fast casual, where it's like the minimum in order to be nice,
It's like those direct-to-consumer brands and stretchy clothing and all that is sold as a solution to dressing yourself every day. Dressing yourself every day is seen as a great agony that must be solved through products. And feeding yourself every lunch is seen as this big, annoying thing. Do you meal prep? Do you get factor meals that you heat up and stuff? Or do you go to Chipotle, where it's predictable, semi-customizable, and always there?
Yeah. I kind of relate to eating bowl slop because I actually do it quite a bit.
No, not a crime. It's fine.
Yeah. Like there's this meme that I knew about that I saw before I learned what bowl slop was. It's the be white collar, the money is insane meme.
Yeah, and it's just a bowl. It's just an average chicken bowl of something.
Yeah. The micro text, or sorry, how do you say the lower text? The lower text is like, do you know how alone I feel?
Yeah.
Because there is something so degrading about getting excited to eat like slop every day when someone points out that it's slop.
Yeah, no, it kind of like ruins the illusion. Like, come on, we're all just trying to get by here. Like, I thought this was better than fast food, and then people started making fun of fast food, and then it felt like yeah, fast casual was safe for a bit, and then now that's in the cultural gun sites.
Yeah. I feel like the sort of last gasp of it was Chipotle boys, or do you feel like that was people making fun of them for eating bowl slop at Chipotle?
It was, I think it just fits into the whole general curiosity of like, who are these boys? Like, where did they come from? Why are they all like that? Like, it's when we all start to notice these patterns and point them out and just like, yeah, they are all standing in line on their phones, like AirPods in, ordering their bowl. Yeah.
We should define it. It's like Chipotle boy, it means like someone, according to an article, boys who eat at Chipotle 5 to 7 days a week, which I've been there. I've eaten there 5 times a week.
Yeah. And it got think piece articles about it and stuff. And then it got recognition from Chipotle itself. They released like a deal.
Yeah, they did. It was a bowl that costs $15.30 with 2 scoops of chicken and guacamole, which if you're asking me is a bit much.
Wait, was that even sold as a deal? Because isn't that just the price of a bowl if you get 2 scoops of protein and guac? Is that a savings, or are they just like...
I mean, it probably... Chipotle, through their app, they have like, I don't know how you'd say it, like designer bowls or like special ones. Sometimes people who are famous or semi-famous will design a bowl for Chipotle.
Yeah, a collab.
Yeah, so it might have been that, or it might have been through the rewards system. Like sometimes they'll say, oh, if you order this specific thing or in this specific way, you get like 30 extra points, which isn't much, but that might have been the case for it.
But I think the actual bowl itself is significant. I think the double protein and being chicken, I think that speaks to like a guy who's like, he goes from work to then the gym, and he's very concerned about his macros and getting enough protein in, but is still like value conscious enough, to go for the chicken and not the other stuff. And also maybe he knows the chicken is the one thing that they like freshly grill there. Everything else is dumped from a bag. I learned that from someone once. But I still go for the barbacoa sometimes.
I like the barbacoa a lot.
Yeah. And then the guac, I think that's important because that's showing you got money. It's showing you got disposable income if you're shelling out for guac every time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And then I want to talk about kava because I actually tried it 2 weeks ago as part of my research for this week. I thought it was only one in Wicker Park, which I went to do some like thrift store shopping. I spent quite a bit of money that day, but I also got to stop at kava.
Yeah, I haven't yet. There's one close to where I work. There is another one in River North, which is much more easier to get into the kind of finance bro demographic.
I was not impressed with it though, because there have been many Mediterranean fast casual restaurants that I think are better. Like I do like Naf Naf more.
Yeah, and that's like a Chicagoland local thing. It's from Naperville originally. But yeah, no, it's like such a competitive field. I think it's really sharpened the blades of everyone there. Like, I don't know, it's usually pretty good. So I knew kava as this like thing on the periphery, like, oh, we don't have that here. That's some kind of like Silicon Valley / New York thing that we're too provincial and backwater to have.
Yeah. You know how I heard about it? There are these somewhat annoying gay guys I follow on Instagram that I mentioned, I think on the Thought Topics episode, because they're the gay guys who go to the most like chuggy destinations, do the most chuggy things. Like they'll go to Mexico City on Day of the Dead and get like skeleton face paint as adults and really cringe behavior. But I saw them like posting about kava quite a bit and really hyping it up, and like everything they like, it was really lame. I thought it was kind of bland, and I had to wait like 15 or 20 minutes for it. Like, I don't know why there's so much hype.
Yeah, it feels like it's expanded right. It's expanded right when it's kind of losing its luster a little bit, right? Isn't fast casual a little bit in trouble now?
Yeah, I mean, according to an article I read, traffic at Chipotle, Kava, and Sweet Green locations has declined this year. I think Kava is still expanding, but with the understanding that their margins are lower, it's still worth it for them to expand, but they're not expecting to get as much of a return, at least initially.
Interesting. That's rarely a good sign for companies when they're just trying to grow themselves out of not being profitable. But yeah, wish them the best.
Yeah.
So to kind of put this into a little historical context, there is like a long and storied tradition of poking fun at like stuffy businessmen downtown. So there was a brief fad for snarky adult coloring books in the early 60s. So this was, like that kind of interesting interbit between the beatniks and the hippies
Yeah.
of a rising counterculture, and realizing, how post-World War II America was very like standardized, and it was very increasingly corporatized. And so the Executive Coloring Book from 1961 satirized the life of a very important executive who has to go downtown and work his job. And so the way it works, I don't think anyone would actually do this, but you color in the different parts of it. And so like the first part is like, this is my suit, color it gray or I lose my job.
There are a lot of gray jokes.
Yeah. They kind of, the early bit is very going heavy on the gray stuff. And that's because like the businessman or white collar uniform back in the day then was a gray flannel suit. And this is not like flannel like we think of it, like very multicultural. This was a very like even flannel. It was just kind of like dark gray, light gray kind of mixed together. And that was just a very safe option. It wasn't a big statement in any way. But yeah, and that's just what you wore.
It's interesting to learn that executives, including on Wall Street, they had this uniform of like a gray flannel suit, because I thought that maybe what we've experienced recently with finance bros is a new phenomenon where, for whatever reason, people in finance want to have a uniform. But it sounds like maybe yuppies were the exception.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's always interplay of like wanting to stand in but be special. That's like what I always find the funniest bits of American Psycho, is that they're supposed to all look the same in the outside. There's a whole scene where they're in the room comparing their business cards and stuff, and it's very small differences between them. And that's what they call the narcissism of small differences, where when you have an in-group, it becomes just very intense. You're all so similar in these, like, in many ways. So whatever is different, you hone in and you focus on, like, yes, we're wearing the same brand of suit, but he has Oliver Peoples glasses and I don't. Like, so yeah, it's this constant, like, I think it, maybe that's what causes the psycho, this like vacillating thing of wanting to fit in perfectly but be unique.
Yeah. And you really do need to fit in when you work for a place that demands so much of you. Yeah. So it must be a bit difficult to strike that balance.
Yeah. To be like exceptional, but one of everyone. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about some other ways that finance bros relate and differ to yuppies. And then also to this other phenomenon I like to think of as being the men moving to cities idea. It's a really broad concept, but I feel like this fits in with those other three.
Yeah, because going back to like flaneur, that was like, well, we really had modern cities for the first time. So this was drawing people, like from like agrarian environments into the city. Like, what are they doing? How are they reacting to it? And then with yuppies, the kind of, this has been after a period of suburban exodus. So why are these guys going back downtown and living in condos? So that's where the curiosity came from. Metrosexuals was, I think there was still a through line, to yuppies there, of course, too, of just like, wait, we're all supposed to live in the suburbs. What are you doing? Why are your pants so tight?
Yeah. The ways that they match are many of the ones you mentioned. One through line is that they're all wealthy.
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember as much about flaneurs, but I feel like it was largely upper class men, particularly from the dandy angle, in order to dress well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, of course, they work in finance like yuppies did. And I feel like a lot of metrosexual men also had well-paying jobs. That was part of it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, being wealthy is a big part of all four. Yeah. But there's more differences with finance bros than any of the other groups, I feel like. There's a lot to say.
Yeah, they're definitely like, in the dressing to have a uniform thing, whether it's like conscious or subconscious or something, or it's just not thought about. They don't think about standing out.
And to their credit, they're not as ostentatious in their displays of wealth and vanity. Like, yes, they do sometimes wear shoes that are Gucci or Ferragamo, and they might have a nice watch, but it doesn't feel like it's coming from the narcissistic angle of yuppies.
Yeah, it is strangely flattening, Like, it's not, your boss doesn't wear a $7,000 suit or something like that. He's wearing the same thing as you.
Yeah. And then also with finance bros, they don't seem to be interacting with the urban environment much at all. They're a little too busy to do that. All the pictures on our Pinterest board are of men on the street, largely in Manhattan. But they just kind of live in the pod and eat bugs.
Yeah, it's that they're let out of the pod to eat bowl slop, and then on weekends they go to the first restaurant they saw on Instagram Reels that their girlfriend is bugging them to go to and all that. But
Yeah.
no, now we're being a little mean. But no, it's just, yeah, I will say one way I mentioned it earlier, but they do seem to really like divvy bikes, the rental e-bikes in particular.
Interesting.
But I think that fits into the whole kind of solutions-based thing of like, I don't know, I'll take urbanists in whatever form they come, like whatever gets people like out of cars and engaging with their city and stuff like that. And so for a finance bro to be like, why would I pay for parking? Why would I be on a crowded train and stuff when I could just like shoot down a street on a 20-mile-an-hour rental bike for not that much money? So yeah, it appeals to them. It's nice.
Yeah. It also might be because of the distance they need to travel to get to work. They can afford to live 10, 20 blocks away from work or closer even if they want to. But oftentimes they're in that sweet spot where a bike makes sense.
100%. I noticed that about like when I use divvies and stuff is that there's just a lot of like churn of them, like huge clumps. Like you'll see a station like bursting at the seams and then you'll see it empty and stuff. It's because it's subject to like, people like actively using it. Because it's kind of a thing that like European cities know, which is that like in biking cities like Copenhagen and Amsterdam, people don't travel that much at all. Like, and also the real like downtown of these cities is kind of as big as like Chicago's like Lincoln Park Inn, basically. So if you live in that kind of catchment area, it is easier to live a biking lifestyle.
And then one more sort of angle of finance bros I want to talk about is demonstrated well by Succession, and that is their vulgarity. Have you seen Succession much?
I've seen some clips. Like I try to avoid them because I'm like, I'm going to watch the show someday. I do not want to just watch this in reels and stuff. But I'm always curious to see like, is Dasha Nekrasova actually good at acting? Many say no.
You want to hear something crazy about like that? So Anna's never actually watched Succession. Isn't that messed up?
That is a psychic attack. Yeah.
No, it is.
No, that is.
No, that's the sort of like mean girl psychological warfare that I can't relate to. Like, why? It's so easy to watch a TV show and your best friend is on it. Like, what games is she playing?
Yeah, no, that is some evil. That is a psychic dagger into her heart. Yeah.
But I've seen at least 2 seasons. I got right to the middle of the second season, I think, when Dasha starts being a character, and her name on it is like Comfrey. It's like some bizarre name.
Fascinating. I love having a secondhand knowledge of Succession.
Yeah, but I liked Succession. Kind of one of the things that turned me off to it was just how they're always swearing and talking about their private parts in boardrooms, and it was definitely meant to be like shocking.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit of truth to it. Like with finance pros in private, I think they do kind of get like that.
It's a way to like build in-group kind of rapport and stuff is cursing. I make a point of not cursing that much, like even on job sites and stuff, so that when I do pull it out, it's like, oh wow, things must really be messed up if Joseph is cursing and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting cultural shift. I remember, this is the weirdest thing to bring up, but they made that movie about Stephen Hawking, like, what is it? The Theory of Everything? Was it that one? It had Eddie Redmayne in it. It's just a biopic of Stephen Hawking, and they interviewed his wife about it, and they're like, "Is it accurate?" So everyone always wants to know what a biopic, and she's like, "Everyone curses too much. Like these were Cambridge like physicists. They were not cursing like that." And I was like, "That's changed in 70 years." I know like curse words weren't printed or said on TV as much back then, but I kind of always assumed there was a low grade kind of like people were always using profanity.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for discussing Finance Bros with me.
Yeah.
If you're a listener, if you liked this week's episode, send it to someone. Maybe some Finance Bros in your life will like it.
Send it to a quant you really care about. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder who we dunked on the hardest this week. Maybe it was quants. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I don't know. Actually, I think they come out on top because they're like lovable nerds, and they're not like orchestrating the downfall of everything. They're just providing the information.
Yeah. You want to hear something crazy Pablo told me? So while we were in Poland, he got an email from his school, which he no longer attended, but it was like, oh, there's a job fair on campus today. Citadel is coming. And like Pablo like burst out laughing, and I was like, what's so funny? I don't get it. He's like, you don't understand. You'll never understand. He was like, this like firm, they only like hire people who are geniuses. They pay like $900,000 the first year. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, they churn through 10% of their employees annually. And it was just like on this level of like, what? Like, I can barely get fired from my job if I'm late every day. Like, what are you talking about? They get rid of 10% of people every
I
year.
think they atrophy people. I think those people can't take it. I think that like the money is good enough that they feel like they can like cool down for a second after it and live well anywhere.
I know.
But yeah, that is, yeah, it's, I don't know. It's good to get those looks into a different life, but that is, yeah, 9 is incomprehensible. I have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, bye everyone. Have a good week.
Have a good one.